Happy Sunday, folks, and welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the November 6th, 2021 edition of Talking Smack. My audio review of SmackDown from Friday did go up yesterday here on the channel, so if you haven't already, be sure to check that out. But a bit of a better edition of SmackDown than last week. Not a great show by any means. Definitely a mixed bag, but definitely an improvement over the week from the week prior. So as far as Talking Smack goes, they opened up the show, Jackie Redmond and Matt Camp2 recapping the opening segment that kicked off SmackDown this week between the Bloodline and the New Day, setting up the night's main event between King Woods, almost like Xavier Woods, but he is now King Woods, recognize the royalty, him and Jimmy Uso in the night's main event. They also recapped Naomi versus Shayna Baszler, both bouts. So Naomi beat Shayna in a fairly quick match that was mostly taken up by the commercial. She beat Baszler via like a roll-up or whatever. Sonya comes out, restarts the match. Shayna wins immediately. Pretty basic stuff. They attempt to get an interview backstage here on Talking Smack with Kayla Braxton and Sonya Deville. Sonya once again kind of blows Kayla off after Kayla kind of recaps what happened. And Sonya says, well, the rules are the rules, and it's my job as a WWE official to reinforce said rules. And then she gets flustered and walks off. So that's all that we heard from Sonya here on the show. Matt Camp questions what Baszler is getting out of it, whether it's money, opportunities, and logically you would think if it is money that would make sense, because we saw Shayna standing next to Sonya when Kayla walked up on Sonya here on this show, and then as soon as Kayla showed up, Baszler bailed, so we never got any explanation there. But it looked like Sonya was giving Shayna money, or was like Shayna had money in her hand, like she was flipping through the bills, but it wasn't. It was like trading cards, or it was the cards that because she's the Queen of Spades. She had the playing cards in her hand, so it wasn't money. But it probably is. They have to explain that at some point, because if I'm Shayna Baszler in storyline, I'm thinking to myself, hey, I'm helping this lady out. Give me a title shot. Give me a shot at the SmackDown Women's Championship, which would make sense. But we haven't seen that yet, and Charlotte Flair's the current champion, and I think she's a heel, or supposed to be a heel. I have no fucking clue. So, who even knows? But maybe at some point we will start to see what this whole storyline is culminating in. They probably have no idea. That's usually the thing with WWE. They start a storyline, and they either never finish it, or they don't finish it because they have no endgame in mind. And that might be what we're getting at here with these two women. Hopefully at some point we do get that Sonya-Naomi match. I mean, it has to happen, whether it be on TV or on a pay-per-view. It has to happen at some point. And Jackie Redmond even brought up a quote that Naomi acknowledged, I think it was in a tweet or something after SmackDown, that it was like a Marilyn Monroe tweet, or a Marilyn Monroe tweet. Twitter was not around at that point. It was a Marilyn Monroe quote, I think, where she said, "If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best." And, Naomi, I guess, quoted Marilyn in saying that. And Jackie said, we don't get to see Naomi at her best because Sonya won't get out of her way. And hopefully at some point, Camp kind of, re-says this as well. He kind of says the same thing, that he also wants to see a match between Naomi and Sonya at some point in the not-too-distant future. Matt Camp is a fan of Los Lotharios, however you pronounce it. I'm probably butchering it. The team of Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. He's a fan. And Jackie Redmond calls them a feisty duo. Cam says with each win, they beat Cesaro and Mansoor. This week on SmackDown, they're gradually building their resume and building momentum. So at some point, maybe we get to see them get a shot at the SmackDown Tag Team titles. They also recapped Drew McIntyre versus Ricochet, which was a very fun match for the 4 or 5 minutes that it lasted, and as well as the Mustafa Ali interaction with Ricochet backstage, where Ali essentially extended his services to Ricochet, and Ricochet said, nah, fam, I'm good. Like, I know what you're all about. I saw what you did to Mansoor. I'm good, dude. Back off. Matt Camp references their history. He doesn't outright acknowledge retribution, which, thank God, they're probably trying to move away from that as quickly as possible, even though it's been several months. It was fucking terrible. But he more so references their history on Main Event. Because on Main Event, I think earlier this year, actually, over the summer, maybe, I don't remember, they had a series of matches, including a 2 out of 3 falls match. That was great. Probably the best main event match I've seen in a very long time. But he brings that up, which probably no one was even aware of, because who watches main event aside from me, But we hear from Ricochet backstage at SmackDown. He says that he wants to continue to prove, as he did on SmackDown this week, and facing Drew McIntyre, that he's one of the most entertaining sports entertainers, which makes me cringe every time I hear it. If they want to call WWE sports entertainment, whatever. But when they call themselves sports entertainers and not just fucking wrestlers, it sounds ridiculous. But he says that he wants to prove he's one of the most entertaining sports entertainers in the sports entertainment business. And he also wants to prove with each performance that he wants to be the most talked about performer in the entire business as well. He knows what Ali is trying to do. He's trying to reel him into one of his schemes. He's not going to fall for it again. He wants to cut it off at the start and tell him no. What he's looking forward to being, as part of being on SmackDown, this is the first time he's been a part of the SmackDown roster since coming to the SmackDown main roster, or coming to the WWE main roster 2.5 years ago. He was always a member of Raw. He's looking forward to representing Blue for the first time in his career, and is also looking forward to the many new competitors he can mix it up with from, he already had history with Drew, but the Sami Zayns and the Hit Rows and people like that, and I think Ricochet versus like a Swerve, for example, would be fucking awesome. So hopefully at some point we get to see that. Speaking of Hit Row, Redmond and Camp back in the studio recapped the Hit Row Sami Zayn segment from SmackDown, which was, conspicuous by her absence was B-Fab. And the segment was not nearly the same without her. She's not in the theme song anymore. The act just lacks that je ne sais quoi without her in it, which is pretty unfortunate. Matt Camp says that he was very surprised that they, kind of left Sami escape. They kind of let him escape unscathed on SmackDown, and maybe they'll get their hands on him one of these days on the show. We hear from Sami Zayn backstage at SmackDown, and he calls himself the elder statesman of SmackDown, with all the new people leaving, or new people coming in, other people leaving, that he finds himself the longest tenured member of the show, which is not true. I don't know if he means, because it's very weird the way that he obviously it's part of his character, and he's a heel, so he's like delusional. But I mentioned this recently in one of my reviews when he called himself the elder statesman of SmackDown. I'm thinking, like, is he talking about longevity in the company? And he just so happens to be on SmackDown? Because he's on the same show as Roman Reigns, who's been on the main roster a lot longer than Sami Zayn has. And then I'm also thinking maybe he's just been on, like, Carmella was essentially the elder stateswoman of SmackDown, having been on SmackDown for 5 years, but then she got drafted to Raw. Then I'm thinking, okay, Sami must be the next longest tenured member of the show. But he's not. Nakamura debuted on SmackDown in April of 2017, and I think might be the only person on the show currently that has never been drafted before. At least as long as he's been there, he's never been drafted. Sami debuted on SmackDown, even if we're counting, when he first got drafted there, that was like the week after Nakamura debuted. And even then, Sami Zayn has bounced around from brand to brand over the last couple of years. He was on SmackDown. He started on Raw, got drafted to SmackDown in 2017, moved back to Raw in 2018, which is where he was up until he moved to SmackDown in 2019, and that's where he's been ever since. So he's not the elder statesman of SmackDown. Nakamura and other people, even Roman Reigns, has been on SmackDown more consistently than Sami Zayn. But anyway, he says that people come to him for advice, and the great power requires great responsibility. He says, the greater the power, the greater responsibility. So he just says a lot of nothing here. And he also just kind of runs off to help someone, or because he saw someone drop some shit on the ground and he wants to go help them. He's like, oh, you forgot to throw that out, or you missed the garbage can, or you dropped this, or whatever. So he runs off going to tend to those people. So a whole lot of nothing here from Sami Zayn, although he is entertaining. Matt Camp says, he's buying into the Sami Zayn bullshit and saying that, he's just trying to keep people on the right track, and that's his whole end game here, I guess, which, whatever. They recapped the main event between Jimmy Uso and King Woods that saw King Woods pick up the victory. Jimmy Uso, per the stipulation, was supposed to bend the knee. He did not. The Bloodline proceeded to lay out the New Day, so it never happened. Matt Camp is not surprised with Roman Reigns' antics and laying out the New Day, because why would he want to see a King of the Ring proclaim that he is the top of SmackDown when Roman Reigns is the tribal chief of the show? He's the world champion. So I kind of figured this might happen when Woods won the crown. I didn't think it would happen this soon, and I'm glad it's even happening at all. So I think it's a logical route to go in with these two characters, and I think it's really cool. Redmond says the New Day got outnumbered and they need Big E, but Big E's over on Raw. He's not on SmackDown anymore. He's got his hands full right now with Seth Rollins. They do mention, Survivor Series right around the corner. Then I'm thinking, they finally acknowledged the fucking show, because on Raw and SmackDown itself, they never even referenced Survivor Series. Per the commercials, we are getting brand supremacy at that show, but they have not made a single mention of Survivor Series in the last 3 weeks since Crown Jewel. We've had 3 SmackDowns and not a single mention of Survivor Series. That's not good. It's not good at all. And they also question what Roman's threat to Xavier Woods is going to mean, what it's going to lead to. Is it going to lead to a one-on-one match next week? Is it going to lead to him beating up Woods even more than he did on SmackDown this week? I don't know. But it was a nice hook for next week. And they acknowledged that, as they acknowledged Roman Reigns. I didn't hear Roman say that. I missed him saying that at the end of SmackDown this week, so I'm glad they kind of referenced that and brought it up here. But that was it for Talking Smack for November 6, 2021. So, pretty, again, per usual, middle-of-the-road show. I wish the interviews were longer and more in-depth. The Sonya interview, quote-unquote, was a complete nothing interview. Sami Zayn said absolutely nothing of note. And Ricochet's promo was a little bit on the longer side, and it was actually pretty good for the time it was given. That's about it, though. Really nothing else to check out that was out of the ordinary about this edition of Talking Smack. Thank you guys for checking out my reviews. I appreciate it. Be sure to check out my other Talking Smack reviews in the description box down below. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Also, hit the bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. Have an awesome rest of your weekend, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.